He was certain no one would ever find out. Mark, a successful businessman with a reputation for charm, had slipped into a luxury 5-star hotel, hand in hand with a woman who wasn't his wife. The shimmering chandeliers, the marble floors, and the discreet staff promised him privacy. For Mark, it felt like the perfect place to hide a mistake, but life has a way of writing twists no one sees coming. When the maitre d' approached with a polite smile and said, "The new owner is here and would like to greet our VIP guests," Mark hardly paid attention. He raised his glass to the young woman across the table. He thought the night was his. But then he heard a voice he knew better than his own heartbeat. "Mark?" He froze. Slowly he turned. And there she was, his wife Sarah, not in tears, not in rage, but standing tall, elegant, and calm. And in that moment he realized something shocking. She wasn't just walking in as his wife. She was walking in as the new owner of the hotel. The air seemed to vanish. His mistress shifted uncomfortably, while Sarah looked directly at him, not with hate, but with something far more piercing, compassion. The truth was, Sarah had quietly built her own life behind the scenes. While Mark chased wealth and status, she invested her energy into people, mentoring young entrepreneurs, supporting single mothers, and helping families who had lost everything. She had been kind, humble, and patient. And when the opportunity came to buy into the hotel chain, her community, those very people she had lifted, helped her rise. Now she stood there, proof that kindness and integrity built a foundation stronger than any betrayal. Mark's lips trembled. "Sarah, She raised a hand gently. "Don't. I'm not here to humiliate you, Mark. I'm here to remind you of something you've forgotten. Real love, real wealth, comes from how we treat others, not what we try to hide." Then, instead of shouting, instead of exposing him to the crowd, she did something no one expected. She walked over to the mistress, who looked pale and embarrassed, and said softly, "You don't have to settle for being someone's secret. Value yourself more. You're worth more." The woman burst into tears. Even Mark, for the first time in years, felt a pang of shame deep enough to shatter his arrogance. Later that night, as Sarah left the hotel, her staff and partners gathered around her with respect and admiration. She had turned what could have been a scene of scandal into a moment of dignity and humanity. Mark was left alone with his choices. For once, he saw clearly the difference between the life he had chased, empty, shallow, built on lies, and the life Sarah had built, full of kindness, resilience, and respect. And though their marriage couldn't be saved, Sarah's act of grace gave him something he never expected, a chance to change. He never forgot her words. And slowly, he began to rebuild his life, not on charm, not on deceit, but on truth, because sometimes the most powerful revenge is not anger. It's showing the strength of compassion. Mark didn't remember walking out of the restaurant that night. His legs carried him, but his mind replayed every word Sarah had spoken. For years, he had believed success meant power, deals, and appearances. He had treated people like stepping stones, including the woman who had stood by him in silence while he built his empire. Now, seeing Sarah, stronger, wiser, and surrounded by people who loved her for who she was, he realized how poor he truly was. The next morning, Mark found himself sitting in his car outside a community center Sarah had once begged him to fund. He had refused back then, calling it a waste of money. But now he watched children run inside, laughter echoing through the glass doors. Their parents, tired but hopeful, chatted on the steps. He remembered how Sarah had spent nights volunteering there, bringing food and clothes, while he dismissed her kindness as softness. For the first time in years, tears welled in his eyes. He didn't walk inside that day, but he promised himself he would come back. And he did. Quietly, without cameras or recognition, Mark began showing up. At first, he carried boxes, swept floors, handed out meals. The same people who once saw him as distant and arrogant now saw a man trying to understand, trying to make amends. Sarah heard about it through others, not from him. She never went to see him, never checked to see if he had truly changed. She didn't need to. Her choice to lead with grace had planted a seed, and she knew seeds take time. Months later, at a fundraiser for families who had lost their homes, Mark stood at the back of the room, no longer the guest of honor, no longer the man in the spotlight. He was just a helper. When Sarah arrived, the crowd parted for her with admiration. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, the past hung heavy between them, but then Sarah gave a small nod. Not of forgiveness, not of reconciliation, but of acknowledgement. A silent message: you've chosen a better road. Keep walking it. Mark lowered his head, humbled. In that moment, he finally understood that Sarah's greatest strength had never been wealth or power. It was her heart. And though he had lost her, he had gained something more important than saving face. He had gained a chance to become the man he should have been all along. Sometimes the harshest lessons come wrapped in kindness, and sometimes the people we hurt the most leave us with the very tools we need to heal ourselves. Mark never again entered a five-star hotel with secrets or lies. Instead, he walked into community halls, shelters and schools, with open hands, a willing heart, and a story that reminded others that grace can change even the most stubborn souls. Because love may not always last forever, but kindness, it leaves a mark that never fades.